very lucky that my session is handling our, after the session about the Haskell. So you will, who of you was on previous session? You will be able to see that F# is at least more understandable than Haskell. Okay, so my name is Serhiy Kalinets, and I'm going to tell you about how the web programming is done in functional style, and I will do this on example of F#. A little bit about me. I am doing programming from the childhood, I would say from the school. I started with BASIC, then it was Pascal, then Delphi, .NET, and a lot of other different stuff. I like to do less and to get more. That's why I like to be efficient by myself, and also I want that all developers are efficient as well. That's why we are conducting the different trainings. We are teaching people to do TDD, continuous integration, all that stuff. And currently I'm holding a position as a software architect in Sigma Software. So these are contacts that you can reach me. And also please make a note that each slide has a number and it has my hashtag in Twitter. So if you are feeling that I'm terribly wrong sometimes, please don't hesitate and put your comments in Twitter and set the number of slides so that we will know that everything is fine or not. A little announcement. So this book was basically the source of my inspiration for this talk. I decided to make this talk before I have read this book, but after I read it, I understood that it's so close to the theme, to the topic that I'm going to cover here. So some examples were taken from this book, and this book is about the using Suave, the framework that I will be talking about, in real life, starting from basics and up to the real life examples, applying DDD, deploying to Docker, and all that stuff. So if you are interested in this, please go and get it and read. Okay, our talk is about the web development. How many of you are doing web? In .NET? Some of you. Okay, in .NET we had a long story starting from ASP.NET, then it was MVC, then it was Web API, and all those technologies, they were becoming more simpler and simpler, but they have one major drawback. The drawback is that you need to write a lot of code. Of course, tooling provides some plumbing for you, so when you create a new project, a lot of code is being generated, but still there is a lot of code that you need to create. However, we will take a look how it is handled in F#. So if we are talking about F#, especially with guys who don't have clear understanding what F# is, it's very common to hear that F# is nice language to handle complex, some rocket science calculations, maybe financial calculations, or scientific stuff. However, as we will see, F# is good for almost every purpose. So it's general purpose language that allows you to write less code and to receive the great results. Why F# is simpler? It's just because instead of different patterns and paradigms and different principles, it has only functions. So this slide was taken from great talk of Scott Flashen, who is author of the beautiful site named F# for Fun and Profit. And he basically says that, well, in F# you need to know only functions, and that's all. You will be a great programmer. However, he forgot to mention that in functional programming there are also different stuff, like monads, end-functors, and all the stuff. By the way, this site was taken from the Haskell site, and I suggest you not to treat it seriously, because Haskell developers, they are looking at F# developers like C# developers are looking at Visual Basic .NET developers. So something like that. Haskell is really rocket science and F# is that simple. Okay, it's enough for F#. During the talk, I will highlight the syntax of F# so you will understand the code that I will be showing you. But let's start from the code that is needed to create a minimal application in Suave, in the framework we are talking about. So basically, this is the old code that should be written. So we have the function that is being called with two parameters. And if you will execute this, you will see something like that. So we have the console, it will open this port, and if you will go to Chrome, type this address, you will see hello world, basically the string that we were passing here. So it's much less code that you should write in C#, for example. So to help you to understand the syntax of F#, let's try to translate it to C# or maybe Java. So they're basically almost the same. So we can see that in F# we don't need commas to separate arguments. Also, we need much less braces. So all those arguments, they are not included in braces. We don't need the semicolon at the end of the string. And we don't need the name of the static class. That basically every code in the Java or C# should locate some class. In F#, it's not necessarily, and even it's not needed at all. So here we see the method, start web server, that accepts two parameters. One is config, and another is something that is called web part. This web part is the main thing, the main building block of the Suave library. Before I will move to web part, a little bit about how F# code looks like and the main principles behind it. So here we can see the function add. So basically it takes two arguments and return the sum. So it's pretty easy, right? It's like x and y, and we returns x plus y. And here we can see the signature, how it's been used in F# and probably Haskell and other functional languages. So we are taking one argument of type A, then we are taking another argument of type A, and we return again the type A. So two arguments and the result. All arguments and result are combined using the arrows, and the last one is result. It's pretty simple. Okay, this is how we invoke this function. So after this code is executed, the A will equal to 10, because we just called the function add, passing 5 and 5. It's also should be understandable. The next thing is more interesting. So what does this line mean? We just called add only with one argument, and this is not an error. The result will be the function that accepts only one argument. The second one is logged to the 10. So the function add 10 basically takes one argument and returns this argument plus 10. So this is called partial application, because we have taken the function add and applied only one argument to it. And we provide the ability to caller to bind another argument. In this case, we can call this add 10 and 5, and it will return 15, because it will obviously 10 plus 5. And the last example here is just another way of passing arguments to a function. So we can see this pipe character, and pipe character basically said that take this value and apply it to the last argument of this function. So this line and this are exactly the same. However, the last one allows to compose different functions, combine them in a kind of chain. Okay? So, if you're talking about the functional programming, in functional programming, everything is a function. If you're talking about the web programming, if you're going to program a web server, so web server in functional programming is also will be a function, correct? So web server is a function, and this function should have a pretty simple signature. Of course, if we are talking about the request and response, the function should accept the request and return a response. Make maybe some transforms, make some calls, but the result should be response. So this is exactly what this means, except of async. So since we are talking about the web server, we are talking about the input-output, we would like that our server will be asynchronous, so that there are no blocking calls. That's why we are taking request and we are returning async result. Async means, in .NET, it means task. In other languages, there is a more common concept called promise. So we are returning the value that may be already available or will be calculated in the future. It's kind of promise. Since we are talking about the functional programming and about the functions, functions in functional programming usually can be combined into new functions. So usually we don't have classes and interfaces. So the only thing we can combine is the function. And for function to be combined, it should accept and return the same result. So we just can combine them like in a tray. So we have some value, pass it to the function, it returns some value, pass it to the next one, and so on. That's why we need to accept and return the same type. In Suave case, this type is HTTP context. And HTTP context is very close concept to everyone who is using web programming. It contains the response and request and response. And every function in Suave is basically, it can analyze request and modify response. That's all. And one more thing that should be mentioned is that this function may return nothing. So F# usually does not allow to nulls. As you may know, null is one of the most big mistakes in the software industry. And that's why most functional languages, and F# as well, they don't allow to return nulls. However, there should be some concept to somehow express the missing value. And here, this concept is an option. So context option means that either there is some context or there is nothing. So the final signature of the main building blocks in Suave is basically the take context and return async context option. And this type has a name. Its name is web part. A web part is, as I have already said multiple times, is basically the building block of Suave. In our simple application, we already noticed this OK web part. OK web part is pretty simple. So here we can see its implementation. It's not the real implementation from the Suave, but it's just very close to it. So basically, OK is a function that accepts two arguments. The first one is stream of content, the stream that we are going to return. Maybe a stream, maybe something else, but in this case it should be stream. And accepts context. And it returns the same context that has received with a response that is changed. So we are creating new response, we are putting content in this response, and we are setting status quo to 200 OK. So this is simple. Then we convert this context into the option using sum. Option may have two values, either sum of something, in this case it's context, or null, it's just nothing. And we are packing this into async return, so it's kind of task from result. Is it clear, guys? Are you following? Because I will ask questions after the session, so just be prepared. Okay, and this is how we are going to use it. So we will create web part that will return hello world and 200k as a status code. And as we can see, the signature is basically as it should be for web part. Yeah, so it's exactly the same. So this is not final result. This is a function that should accept the context. Because as we can see, it should accept 2 arguments, but in this case it accepts only 1. So we need to call this WP and set it context, and in this case it will produce a value. Okay, so return simple okay is just that simple. What about verbs or HTTP methods? They are also handled by web parts. So for example, we would like to match a request whether it contains a GET, whether it GET or POST or whatever. So this is done in this way. So we are creating the function GET. Function GET accepts context, and then we perform some check. So let R mean that we have a variable or value R, and this value will be, if the request type is GET, then we will return the same context. If not, we will return none. So we just check it. If it's GET, then we just return the same context as we received. And we pack this stuff into a synchronous result. So this function will return the same context only if the HTTP verb is GET. Otherwise, it will return nothing. And it's going to be used in Suave using this fishbone operator. I will come to it later, but in general, this syntaxes mean that if the request is GET, then please return OK with the hello. Should be simple, right? The next thing is combinator. So back to our fishbone operator. This fishbone operator is basically a function called compose. And this function takes 2 web parts and context as well. And it returns a synchronous expression that consists of the following steps. First thing, we are executing the first web part, passing the context. So we are checking whether it produces anything. Then we are checking its result. So if it's none, then we return none. The first didn't return anything, we are also going not to return anything. But if the first web part returns something, then we are executing the second web part and return its result back. So in our case, this fishbone is basically the alias for this function. And if we will take a look here, so the first web part is GET. In this case, we are checking the context. If the context contains GET method, then we return the execution of the second part. This is how we can provide some filtering. And also we can use the same technique to match on different roles. So for example, we would like to match whether our URL contains hello and this and do something. So we are using almost the same code, but we are checking not the verb, but we are checking the role. And we are using it in the same way. And also we can notice that we can combine several web parts in a single one. So each of these 3 points are web part, and the result is also web part. So this is how functions can be combined. And in this case, we can read this as get to hello endpoint should return OK with content hello. What if our get check didn't resolve into some result? For example, we were checking for get, but we received the post, and we would like to provide different alternatives. So if it's get, do this, and this post, do that. In this case, we can use the choose function. And choose function basically takes a list of web parts and tries to evaluate if each of them until some doesn't return some value. So it just takes the first that returns something. So this is the code. Actually it takes, and this is very interesting thing that you will not find in C# or Java. It calls uh, so let's take a look. So we are taking web parts. Web parts is a list. And we try to match this web part against different alternatives. The first one is empty list. So if web part is empty list, so we have nothing to check, just return none. But if it's not empty, we are going to the next step. And on the next step, we match it against this construct. And this construct is basically X is the head of the list and XS is the tail. Head is always the first element of the list, and tail is the rest of them. So X will always be there because it's not an empty list. Otherwise, we would finish here. But XS may be an empty. And we are taking this first element, we try it against our context, and if it contains something, we return this value. Otherwise, we are calling the same choose function recursively, sending it the rest of the list. So we are doing the recursive calls on the function itself until we will get some value from one of the elements, or we will end up with empty list and we will return just none. So this is how it works. And using these building blocks, we can create a routing and we can set up complex rules. So for example, in this case, we set up the get and post for hello. And in each case, it will return different responses. So it will say that in this case, it's just hello get, and in this, and hello post. And for foo, we are doing the same, but we are basically changing the order of these combinators. So here we just check in against the verb, and then we check in against the path, and then we return OK. But here we are doing opposite way. We are checking against the path. If path is full, then we choose either get or post and return the result. So the result of this and this are the same. And as you can see, there are different ways of expressing this kind of rows. And still, all this app is still web part. So it contains of other web part, but it's again the function for our application. Also, we can add authentication. So all aspects that we are using in our web development, authentication, compression, setting different meme types, I don't know what else, person queries, they are doing using the one approach, using this web parts. And web parts for authentications look like that. So if we get the public, then okay. But otherwise, we are using this class and method from the Suave, and it will check our request whether it contains basic full username and bar password. And this notation should be similar to those guys who used to program on calculators, you know, this Polish notation, when you first type the operation, then you type the operands. So here basically we are saying that this combination of username and password that is in request, this foo and bar, it should be equal to foo and bar. So we could have written it in the way like lambda and the lambda equal this value, but this notation is more compact. And this is one of the reasons why the F# programs are taking less space than C# alternatives. Okay, if we're passing this, so we're passing this only in the case if username and password match these values, we can go to the choose and then just check the get, path, and all the stuff that we have already seen. Okay, this is simple. We can return just strings and that's okay, but we would like to build some REST. Nowadays everyone builds REST, right? So strings are not something that we should impress each another. And Suave basically has some built-in capabilities to build REST applications. It has ability to serialize in JSON. But this built-in functionality is not very cool because it relies on the standard .NET serializers, the JSON serializer. And that JSON serializer, it requires that your types that you are going to serialize to be decorated with attributes. You know this, data members, data contract, and so on. However, there is a very easy way to plug in another serializer. And in this case, those of you who do some programming in .NET, they probably recognize that this is a Newton JSON serializer. So we are making web part again that accepts some arbitrary value. So it's some value with unknown type. It's kind of generic. You don't know the type of the V in this case. And we are creating JSON serializer settings from Newton JSON. We are setting the policy that all the values should be camel case. We are calling JSON convert serializing this object and returning this as a OK result. So the result of this JSON method will be OK with serialized V object, and also we are setting mime type to application JSON using this another web part, as you may guess. So writer set mime type is a web part that modifies the mime type header. And also how we can utilize this method, we can just create a REST method that takes some resource name and the resource. The resource is basically it's not a value, it's a type that contains different methods. It's kind of repository. Okay, so in this case it should have a get all, for example, method. And we just make the path. We are making get all code that will return JSON, and we return this web part that should match on the resource path, get, and the call method get all. So this is how it can be used. With one line, we are doing REST that will match on orders path, and in this case, it will return the value of DB get orders. And DB get orders may take orders from the database, from the memory, from whatever. In the same way, we can add another methods here. So for post, it will be insert, for put, it will be update, and so on, delete. For delete and for put, we might need to pass our URL and to find some patterns here. So for example, we would like to find the ID of the item we are going to delete. And this can be easily done using, again, Suave filters, a method path scan. It just takes the format string and these special characters that are taken from just, in this case, these formats are for int. So if this string will match, in this case, the first int will be bound to the x, the second will be bound to the y. And we will return this function that basically returns the sum of the x and y. This is how we can parse the strings, and except of int, we can of course match against dates, strings, we can use regex and so on. All that is the documentation. Okay. Again, on the first example of our simple application, we were using some default configuration. So configuration is the way where we can configure our server. So where we can configure bindings, where we can configure ports, SSL stuff, different timeouts, and so on. So this is pretty simple object. This is not kind of extract. Those are really all the fields that can be configured. So for example, mime type snap is a mimes that are being handled, logger, error handler, and the stuff. And the good news are that we should not create this object ourselves. So we can take the default configuration and just change the needed parameters that should be changed. So for example, if you would like to add SSL support to our application, we need to change the bindings. And in this case, we are creating bindings with two items. The first one is simple, it will be bound against 80 port. And the second one will be HTTPS, it will be bound against HTTPS port, this 443, and it will use our certificate. And also for some case we are adding some listen timeout to our server. So we can add SSL support using this, I don't know, 10 lines of code that we can even copy paste from the server documentation like I did without understanding what's going on. But the result will be that we have SSL. No need to configure Internet Destination Services or whatever. Okay, so what else are supported or can be easily added to our Suave server? First of all, is WebSocket. WebSocket are supported out of the box with very convenient programming model like we have seen before, and they provide bidirectional communication with our clients. Also, it's rather easy to add OAuth or GVT token support, and the book I mentioned in the beginning, it has nice example of the implementation of GVT authorization, and both authorization server and the resource server, they implemented using Suave, and all the listings are available in GitHub of the author of the book. So it has a little bit more code than those simple examples, but the way less code that I have seen in C# implementation, for example. Also, there are different blog posts, and Suave homepage you can find instructions how to publish it to Azure or to another cloud provider, or how to make a Docker container. And on this book, there is the last section is about making continuous deployment from the GitHub using Travis CI and to the DigitalOcean using the Docker. So this code can be easily put into Docker and put into any Docker provider like DigitalOcean. This is very handy. And this is .NET, but it will run on Linux without any issues. Also, there is an option to deploy Suave applications since it's just a simple web, not web, but console application. It can be easily deployed to the Azure using these YAMLs. Did you hear about YAMLs? YAMLs is a very cool thing. It was implemented by Microsoft, and it basically an acronym of yet another microservices solution. And this solution, it relies on, did you hear about Azure Web and Docker roles, this cloud services stuff? And these cloud services, they are very huge, and they take forever to deploy. For example, it may take from 5 to 10 minutes just to see your code running in the Azure. But YAMLs basically requires only one deployment, and then it accepts arbitrary console applications, so any exe files that you can just upload somewhere to the known location, update some configuration file in these YAMLs, and it will be running in 2 minutes. So this is really nice way to deploy microservices in Azure, and Suave also plays nice here. Okay, so if you are interested on the topic, you can follow these links. First of them is the book that I highly recommend, so it provides a lot more information that I was able to cover during this session. Also, Suave.io is basically the homepage for Suave, and it has a lot of useful details and links to other resources, and also the documentation is pretty good. One of the nice examples is this Suave music store. This is Git book together with the source code and instructions how to build the music store using Suave, adding the database into play, different pages, login, authorization, and so on, the cart management, I guess. And the last thing is Sharp for Fun and Profit. This is nice resource of Scott Flashen. two slides was from the very beginning, where all the old concepts are being changed into functions. And this resource is very valuable for those guys who are trying to make some changes in their developers' lives, try to become more functional, and it provides very good introduction into basics and then into more complex things in F#. Also, if you're not ready to start redoing all your job projects into F#, but you would like to use F# on your work, you can try these tools. So the first one is Fake. Fake is a build automation framework that allows you literally write scripts on F#, scripts that will build your stuff. Build, run tests, deploy, and so on. So if you're a .NET guy, you probably are using MS Build. But this thing is the way better than MS Build because it provides you to write code. But XML that is used in MS Build, or maybe if you're using none, I don't know. It's really hard to write code in XML. So when you try to perform some loop or maybe if-then stuff in XML, it's a nightmare. But in F# you're using the language, you're using your ecosystem, the whole .NET framework is to your service, and you can use it to build your stuff. You're using it, and it shows really great results. The next thing is the Canopy. Canopy is basically a F# wrapper around the Selenium, but around the WebDriver. I don't know how to name it correctly. Is it Selenium? WebDriver, anyway. This is a framework for web tests. So you should be familiar with that, right? And it provides very nice DSL. So as you notice, F# does not require these braces, commas, and so on. And using this, basically the scripts on Canopy, they looks like the scripts in QAs when they just write the text. So click button, it will be click button without any braces. So just take a look, it's really simple. And we also are using it on our automation, and it's really nice as well. Okay, so the summary. F# is one of the things that allows you to make programming fun again. So we are professionals, we are sitting in our offices, we are doing, I don't know, data sets or maybe some forms, and there is nothing new for us. So we are using the same code again and again, but functional programming and F# are things that would allow you to travel back in time when you were young and you were studying new things. So you can be senior developer or you can be software architect, but when you're trying to do something functional, you are starting from the beginning, and this may be fun. So you are trying to solve some regular tasks, but using the new tools, and this is really enjoyable. Functional programming is not a complex thing. So you don't need to know this category theory or monads or whatever, but if you will learn the functional programming, your mind will be shifted, and it will be shifted in some good way. So personally, when I got familiar with the functional approaches, I'm using it in my C# code. So I started to use lint, for example, in almost everywhere. And one example, we have an interview task for new candidates. And this is a pretty simple task. You have a string and you need to perform some lookup in this string. And this task can be resolved in C# in 2 lines using the lint. But when I see as people trying to do loops and nested loops and these for I, j, +1, -1, and they're getting lost very quickly in this imperative code. So this is good indication that imperative code is a thing that really hard to maintain and even to write correctly from the very beginning. But the functional style is almost always you just need to write less code. Less code is more simplicity, I would say. And if you decide to try F#, you don't need to learn everything from the very beginning. So first of all, it's still the same .NET. So all the framework is on your disposal. And also the guys on F#, they has produced a lot of different tools, such as the Suave, Canopy, a lot of tools for big data processing. So if you go to the page of F#, you will see many different nice tools that you can use and you can learn from them. Okay, the last thing, so probably you were thinking that functional programming is kind of magic, but apparently it's not. Thanks. Okay, guys, if you have any questions, so I think we can discuss them after the session, and now just go and drink coffee. Thank you.